All right, we are live here at Common Sense, Ohio, October 11, 2024. Your hosts, we have Norm, we have Brett, and you have yours truly, Steve Palmer, Brett Johnson, and Norm Murdoch. If you're looking for last names, that was my tribute to the late Don Pardo.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live. And why would I do that? Because the news of the day, or this day in history, Norm, Saturday Night Live aired in 1975, October 11, the original cast. Let's see if we can pull that up.
Nearly 30.
Nearly 30 years ago. Yeah, more. Yeah.
No, it's
more
50.
than that.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
Wow. Because, we all do the same thing, do the math wrong on that one.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that show would last? There were some seasons you kind of go, oh, this has got to be, they're done. They're done. And then they keep it going, though.
Yeah, they just keep going.
Yeah.
And
that's a 90-minute hole that NBC's got to fill, though, if you think about it.
yeah, so it was, let's see if I can pull them up. I had them a second ago.
And you'd have such outrage if that show would ever get canceled.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
50 years, that's what, 3 generations,
Yeah.
4 generations of
And the same producer,
yeah.
Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Jeez.
Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Garrett Morris, Jane Curtin, John Belushi, Gilda Radner.
What a
Fabulous.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And look, they were. There's lots of things to choose from for the fact of the day here at CommonSenseOhioShow.com. We're coming at you live, but if you want to go check out the website with back episodes, you can do that too. But every week I come up with a news of the week or this day in history, and I recently have switched from just doing that boring old World War II to all sorts of stuff. So, but this is important because the original show aired with all these guys, and the original host, the first host, George Carlin. And if you go watch any of George Carlin's bit, it's like he saw this coming in the 70s.
He was way ahead of
He was so far ahead of his game, like criticizing the government, pointing out the complete, utter, total lack of common sense in anything we're dealing with, just the total insanity of it all. And he was indiscriminate about it. Yeah. And the original cast of Saturday Night Live was indiscriminate. Now, it may be because it was at who was president? That would have been Carter, right?
Ford.
Ford.
Yeah.
And they made fun of Ford, and they made fun of, I think they even made fun of Carter.
Oh, they did.
And remember the old Reagan years when he would be like acting like he was asleep and didn't know what he was doing. And then after the scene, he'd be like up doing all this crazy stuff, talking to Gorbachev. But, they were indiscriminate. And then since... it's a captured operation to some extent for the last 10 years, I think. They everything is a bad Trump. They wouldn't touch Obama with a 10-foot stick. Although I have seen recently they're making fun of Walz and Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that Maya.
But like Joe Biden, imagine Joe Biden. Imagine what you could do with Joe Biden on Saturday Night Live. I mean, he was essentially asleep.
Where we got robbed was when the guy who did Clinton the best was Phil Hartman.
I know. Oh.
And he absolutely owned Bill Clinton.
Yes.
And then his wife killed him in their bed.
Yeah. It was.
And the thing is about Phil is we got 1 year of him doing Clinton. We were robbed of 7 good years. It would have been massive.
No.
Yeah.
But I remember his McDonald's little segment where he's stealing French fries off the plates of customers at McDonald's, and Phil Hartman, one of the Secret Service guys leans in and goes, sir, you're taking property from people. You really can't do that. And he said, well, just don't tell anybody. And the guy said, not even Mrs. Clinton. He says, hey, look, buddy, there's going to be a lot of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
There could be a lot of things we don't tell Mrs.
Yeah, with that.
With the thumb.
It was off the hook, man.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
And that whole way, the fry in his voice, the whole way
it was great. But anyway, that's
oh God,
that's an interesting fact. And I think what's as I always say, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I think social history and pop culture history is equally important. And Saturday Night Live is, I think, influenced several generations now, mine included. I remember being able to stay up late. I mean, I was only 5 years old, but 5 years after that, I remember staying up late, and certainly in the 80s with Eddie Murphy and that group, and Adam Sandler coming later, and I mean, just greats, and the late great Norm Macdonald, the best ever at the news desk.
Incredible.
If anybody wants, if you're just bored and you're scrolling and doing a deep dive into YouTube, just Google Norm Macdonald and all his appearances on the various late night talk shows, his news desk appearances on Saturday Night Live, particularly with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And he was indiscriminate. He went after everybody.
And he got fired because he went after everybody.
He got fired, specifically O.J.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did not like that.
And then go to his appearance on Letterman shortly after. Like, he shows up in Letterman afterwards talking about it. And you know, Norm, a genius.
Yeah.
A genius. Yeah. But anyway, so CommonSenseOhioShow.com, where we're bringing at you an Ohio-centric view of the world. And why does that matter to you? Well, I don't know that it does, but listen up. I'll bet you'll find something you like. And really what we're trying to do is talk common sense to the common folks. And if you're not so common, you can listen too. But the idea is we have lost common sense. And
totally.
I think in the Midwest we have a good grounding. And, you know, as goes Ohio, so does the world, we like to say. So we're here bringing you news, not only Ohio news. That's all boring stuff, although the Tribe did win last night. Or, no, we can't call them the Tribe anymore.
The Guardians.
The Guardians.
There you go.
That doesn't make any sense.
No
Anyway,
sense at
so
all.
we got news with Norm starting us off. What do you got?
Well, I think the hottest story, you know, Milton turned out to, they're attributing something around 14 to 16 deaths, and they'll probably start including heart attacks and things that could possibly be attached to Milton. But to me, the hottest story, the thing that hit yesterday that was like a thunderclap, was this TD Ameritrade bank. It's a Toronto-based bank. They're headquartered in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but it's a foreign bank. It's the 10th largest bank in the United States, and they just agreed to a $3 billion settlement with the federal government for money laundering, and they're admitting it. They are not saying, you know, that this is a settlement and we do not stipulate. They're admitting that they money laundered in a comprehensive way, something like $600 million over the counter, in just like people would drop off bags of cash that were fentanyl drug dealers.
Oh, so they're actually laundering drug money.
And
where's that? What's the origin of the bank?
They're in Toronto. Well, they're out of Toronto. I guess that's the T in the TD.
Yeah.
But TD Ameritrade, 10th largest bank, just yesterday agreed to this $3 billion. And the feds are saying we're still looking at all of the employees. Apparently, it was a long-term, you know, investigation, and they have emails and tape recordings of tellers and managers and bank executives outright acknowledging that they're money laundering. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's stunning. And yet, I'll just say, because we were bitching about this before the show started, and yet small business people in the United States are now going to have to fill out some ridiculous beneficiary form.
What's it called, Brett?
A corporate Transparency Act through the BOI.
Yeah, because Common Sense Ohio LLC is very opaque, huh?
Or some guy who owns a packet store, or somebody who's mowing grass, or everybody. If you have more than a 25% interest in a small business, you got to fill out this form, or the fine is up to $500 a day.
No, it was $1,000 a day, wasn't it?
I read the fine print. It said 500.
Okay.
Well, so we don't even know.
But
Right.
But
it's
you
expensive.
And you got to file this form, folks, just so you know, by January 1st, before January 1st of 2025. So you only have 3 months. But at any rate, we got to do that. But banks are exempted from this same disclosure form.
This is important. We should probably get Harper, one of our accountants, on the horn for this, because this is important. So what you're really saying, Norm, is you've got an LLC out there. Say, like you said, you got a landscape business, you got a
corporate, a sub S
corp.
Yeah.
If you own some property and you stuck it in an LLC, if you say you started an LLC and you thought, man, one of these days I'll get to this and do something with it. Like, you've got to fill this crap out, and if you don't, you get fined ridiculous amounts. Now, look, I'm not. It wouldn't surprise me if there's an abatement on the fines, or if it doesn't get enforced exactly the way it is. But it's certainly nothing I am banking on.
No,
and no pun intended. And I am. it appalls me that we have to do it, yet I have to do it. And this is going to be one of my outrages later. So,
And it's only for small business. It specifically exempts large corporations. That's one of the exempted classes.
Yeah.
So it's insane. So this bank launders money, right? And they don't have to disclose who the beneficiaries are of their shareholders, right? Yeah. But we do. Of course.
And money laundering, look, I
mean,
money laundering always sort of is a confusing thing for people. See, I deal with money laundering. Why? Because I represent folks charged with crimes in both federal and state courts around the country at times. And a lot of federal cases, particularly drug cases, have a component of money laundering. And my clients seize that charge, and they're like, what the hell does that mean? I didn't launder any money. Because they're thinking like what you're thinking. I dropped stacks of cash to some like what was the olive oil business in The Godfather or something, and then I get it back. And, it doesn't have to be that formal. Anything you buy with drug money and then later sort of dispose of and get the money back, say a car, and you sold a car and it comes back to you, that money now looks apparently clean. And so that's money laundering. So anytime you're engaged in transactions with illegal money, that becomes money laundering. It's a pretty broad definition. This one particularly, though, seems like it's the old-fashioned kind.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring in this X dollars. I'd like to know how the scheme worked. I'd like to know how it was coming back to the...
They said that $600 million would be deposited, and one of the means of getting the money back out of the bank, surreptitiously, basically, was $40 million of it was withdrawn at ATM machines.
Yeah, so... Yeah, so
how much money is in an ATM machine?
Well, no, this is what you're saying. This is a very organized scheme.
But still,
this is a very organized scheme.
That's a lot of money flowing out of an ATM machine. Though.
Well, it's over this time period. But that tells you you've got like operatives around taking money out. I mean, this is a pretty well organized scheme, and it was done by agreement with the SEC. You said, or
it was Merrick Garland held the press conference, so it's the DOJ.
It's a DOJ. All right. Are they pleading guilty to something, or is it a civil penalty?
This so far is civil, but Garland and the DOJ guys at the press conference said they are going to go after individual bank employees,
but not the big bank.
Oh yeah, people at TD Ameritrade.
No, but not the bank itself corporately. Or this is the sanction for the bank corporately.
Yeah, this is the sanction for the bank corporately.
Right. So, look, if you're an individual member of the bank and you need some help, all you have to do is call me, Palmer Legal Defense, 614-224-6142.
And we remember Ohio's scandal with the energy company, First Energy. They settled, right? And they thought, they're going to, Ohio will be happy, with just the money. And it was like, not really.
No.
Then they went after the executives, and they're going to prison. Yeah. Or they're already in.
Yeah.
So the other really hot thing that's been going on is this dialogue back and forth with Kamala on Milton and on Helene. And it's gotten really ugly between her and Ron DeSantis. And it's gone back and forth. So I asked producer Dan, at some point in the broadcast, he'll insert a slide, probably post-production. But Mark Levin, who himself was a prosecutor with the DOJ, put together a slide of what has happened, what has transpired during the Biden-Harris administration. 13,099 convicted murderers, 15,811 rapists and sex criminals, 425,431 convicts, 350 terrorists, and 325,000 unaccompanied minors have come in under their jurisdiction. And these are people that ICE knows about. This is from a letter to ICE dated July 2024 to Congressman Tony Gonzalez of Texas. All of this information came out recently. And Kamala has been blaming Trump for somehow killing some magic bill that would solve everything. And I just want to go through what that bill does.
Yeah, we need to break that because this is everywhere. It's like that.
It's everywhere.
It's a talking point for all the news.
It's like,
we could have fixed it. I mean, forget about the fact that when we had Trump, look, say what you want about Trump, but when Trump was president, we didn't have these border crossings.
Yeah.
When Biden became president, we did. Yeah. So look, you can say that Biden couldn't have stopped it, but he certainly started it.
Yeah. Right. And I think in that interview with CBS, which we can get to, but the guy interviewing on 60 Minutes, Kamala said several times, But it skyrocketed under you and Joe. Don't you regret that? Of course, she danced around. But what that bill would have done, okay, let's do the first part. It would have locked in this concept that Biden had in his head of 5,000 people per day would be allowed to come in before the bill would give him the right, which he already has this right, but the bill would have given him the right after 5,000 a day average is exceeded to
5,000 a day average?
Average.
So average over what period of time?
That's a good question, but I think it was a monthly average. And if the average went over 5,000 per day, then he had the right to shut the border.
1.825 million a year.
That's what Mark Levin pointed out.
Without,
it's almost 2 million.
Without any intervention.
Without any intervention.
So, yeah.
I mean, so what it would have done is, it would have put into law basically 2 million illegals a year before the president can do anything.
So it's Trump's fault for poo-pooing it. And Trump's not even in Congress, nor was he president.
Well,
now, they're saying that Trump influenced Congress to make it political.
So this is really important to understand, folks. This bill never hit the floor of the Senate. This bill was voted down in Senate committee. And guess who voted against it? So Kamala and Joe have been saying it was a bipartisan bill. And that's because there was one single Republican who voted for it, Lisa Murkowski, senator from Alaska. Guess who voted against it? Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders. They voted against it. So why isn't Kamala condemning those three?
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, nobody knows it because the media won't dig into these things. So it was voted down by the most radically left people on that committee. Case closed.
Wow.
Like, if you want to say Trump killed this bill, go interview Elizabeth Warren, who voted against it, and ask her why she killed the bill.
Well, you started talking about
good God.
You started talking about the hurricanes and DeSantis and Harris. I've been sort of watching this, and I don't honestly think this stuff moves the needle for the election one way or another.
Yeah.
Other than to say this, DeSantis is damn good at handling hurricanes. Right.
Oh, well, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's like, you can say what you want about that man. You can say competent. He wasn't presidential material. You can say that, whatever. I don't care what you say about the guy.
Yeah.
The guy gets it done.
Yeah. He's competent.
He gets it done.
Right.
And
all
anybody,
business. All business.
On both sides of this, if you don't recognize that, then you're not being genuine about it.
That's right.
Which is where Kamala sort of ended up. So Kamala Harris says she picks up the phone and she calls Ron right as is it Martin coming through. And Milton, sorry.
No, gotcha.
Milton coming through.
Yeah.
And Ron's like, I didn't even get the call. I'm busy. And he probably knew she called. But he doesn't take the call, and he doesn't call her back. Now, she gets her panties in a bunch about this and starts saying, well, we're trying to help, and I don't know what's going on, and starts casting aspersions at DeSantis, which you can't do, right? So, look, throw your aspersions when they fit. But this one doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit.
Because DeSantis is good at this. And he doesn't need or want Kamala Harris's help, nor can she offer any.
No.
Like, FEMA is not under her direct control right now. No. It's like, what's she going to do? She is making she's trying to make this a political, I don't know what I'm trying to say. She's trying to make it political.
Yeah.
Right. And then she's accusing DeSantis of making it political by not answering her calls because she's trying to make it political.
She wants to be in on it. She wants to be a star in this recovery.
Yeah.
And she's all over the Weather Channel, for God's sake.
Right. What does she know about hurricanes?
What the hell?
It's like, it's so insane.
It's insane.
What we know is that we know that hurricanes happen. And when they happen, we know that we have to make it important that we help people who are hurt by hurricanes when they happen. I mean, she says crap like that.
And recoveries are not bound by previous recoveries because,
we're not.
Whatever happened in the past,
day.
It doesn't encumber the future recoveries.
Right. And so it's like, it's just so stupid. But I also think, look, on both sides, whether the Republicans are trying to criticize Harris for this, I don't think this moves the needle on the election. I think everybody realizes what's going on both sides.
I just hope those people get to vote.
But I will say
they do deserve the right to vote. I hope people in Western North Carolina and down there on Treasure Island, Florida,
they'll get to vote.
I hope somehow.
I think so. Look, DeSantis, as I said, the only takeaway I have from this is that he knows how to deal with the damn hurricane problem because he deals with it all the time.
Yeah.
He's a logistics guy. He's good at it.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
He's had to deal with a lot of them.
He's a military logistics guy. He just
Yeah.
sort of comes off that way. It's like, do this, do this, do this, do this. And he's got he's got brass. He doesn't. He does what needs to be done. He doesn't care about pissing people off.
Steve, get this statistic. I mean, this reinforces your point. 30,000 of those bucket trucks were amassed in Florida ahead of time.
Yeah.
By
he had linemen waiting at the ready
to go. 30,000.
I forget how many
utility trucks.
I forget how many linemen he had waiting. So for those who don't know, linemen, these guys, they go around chasing storms. My buddy is a safety trainer for power linemen.
Yeah.
And so I sort of get the inside scoop
That's
on
cool.
this. And these guys, this is a roughneck job. It's a dangerous job.
Dangerous.
These guys take pride in their job. They work hard. They travel around fixing problems that people have when these storms hit.
Yeah.
And they literally make your lights come on, right? I mean,
Well,
that's what they do.
to your point, the day after Milton hit, there were 11 to 13 million households without power. As of this morning, I mean, we're just like a day after. This morning it's down to 3 million.
Yeah.
And that's what
I should get my buddy on.
Well, that's what happens.
I'll do an interview with him
when you got 30,000 of your buddies, mustered and ready to go.
It'd be interesting, the strategy behind it. Okay, how do you attack this?
Yeah.
How do you do this?
Yeah.
And are these people independent? Do they work for different sources?
Yeah.
I know they sort of pluck them around.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think what's important about these guys is that these are the country. These guys are the country. These are the guys that go out and they make it happen, and they do it quietly. They do it for money.
Of course,
and they
do.
make good money doing it. But they're willing to do it. And I've seen the posts because I hunt with some of these guys and I'm friends with a lot of them. And they take pride in it.
Oh, yeah.
They take pride in their job. And when they make the lights come on, they feel good. And they feel good because they helped.
Yeah.
And that is something that needs to be recognized more in our country.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
Because it's not FEMA.
No.
Right? It's not the government fixing it. These are grassroots dudes. And I'm sure there's some gals too.
Yeah,
So,
and they're working for people like AEP or private contractors or
and
whatever.
they're giving up their time with their family to go down and do it. And they're doing it for money. I get it. And they party hard.
So are firemen and police and military.
Right. Right.
But they're
well,
doing it.
We better pay them.
They're doing it and
Yeah.
I'm not. Right? So it's like,
That's
hats
right.
off, guys.
Right.
Hats off.
Yes.
Big time, man.
You know it.
Here in Ohio, turning to some Ohio news, a rather incredible complaint waffled into Frank LaRosa's office, our Secretary of State, and it came from a trainee election station volunteer. So she's getting her training in Fairfield County, Ohio, and her supervisor answers her question. She says, well, what about this requirement I'm reading in my little handbook here that I am to ask for voter ID, like picture ID, right? I'm going to match this ID to that person so that, paperwork matches the human being in front of me. And the supervisor said, we're not the ID police. You're not going to do that. And if you do that, I'm going to have you escorted out of here and you will never be allowed to work in a voting precinct again as an elections officer. So she filed a complaint with Frank LaRose, and he exploded over this. He has warned Ohio elections officials in all these counties and precincts that if they do not use the Ohio voter ID requirement, there will be, and I don't know what this means, but Frank said he's a Green Beret, and he said severe consequences.
Well, that's ironic because California now, it
is ironic.
Gavin Newsom has passed a law making it a crime for any local electoral commission or body to require ID. So it's like you can't pass a law requiring
ends
ID.
of the spectrum. Oh my God!
Completely the opposite.
Yeah, they've done the opposite.
And you got to ask yourself, just like as a rational person, why would anybody sign legislation that says you cannot
what are you trying to do?
Verify with a photo ID
What are you trying to do?
that person is this person?
When a photo ID is available, readily available to most people.
For free in Ohio.
Yeah,
it's
free.
free.
Or minimally through a city.
BMV does it free.
Exactly.
If you're a non-driver, they'll give you an ID.
Well, you can get a temporary ID. It's like $10, even if it's not free. I mean, it's like, look.
And
for voting, they made it free.
They should, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm not saying they should. I'm saying this.
But
if the concern
yes.
is that there are people out there
Yes.
who do not have the means to go get an identification card,
Give it to them.
then give it to them for free so they can go vote.
Yes.
I will happily.
Sure. I'll donate.
I hereby agree to use my tax dollars
money
for
for
such
that.
purposes.
You bet.
Although you're going
100%.
to wash it through like 500 people in some department somewhere
Right.
that pays rent and a
It'll
bunch
end
of
up
lawyers.
being $3,000 per
It's
ID.
3,000 ID, right? So,
Right.
but I'm still okay with it.
Yeah.
Just to shut people up that voter ID is
That's right.
racist because it's not.
Of course it's not.
And if you ask any minority, are you able to get an ID? They'd be like, "What are you freaking talking about, you dumbass?" Of course, I'm able to
I
get an
use
ID.
IDs all the
It's
time.
like, think how condescending that is.
It's ridiculous.
It's all BS. It is all a lie. Lies. To say that people can't get IDs because they're underprivileged, it's like, it's so stupid.
Or that it's intimidating.
Or
You
it's
know, like,
intimidating to go get an ID. It's like, look, what are we doing?
what
It's
are you
all nonsense. So then
Right.
you have to ask, what's the real agenda?
Sure.
What's the real
Right.
agenda?
I mean, there's certain
And if it's
chemicals.
not-
If you go down to Tractor Supply and you want to buy fertilizer or you want to buy certain chemicals, like just at a
Is that
retail
right?
store,
You have to have an
oh,
ID?
you got to have a photo ID.
Yeah. Or even the decongestant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to buy nasal spray.
Yeah.
You have to go to the if it's got a Fedrin.
You're-
Well,
rating.
that guy that blew up the Oklahoma federal building, right? He did it with fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizers.
You know, so they want to know who you are if you buy that in bulk.
All right. Well,
Sure.
so
Sure. Wow.
is that racist?
I don't know if you're a Latino landscaper and you buy fertilizer, he's presenting an ID for that. Why can't he do that for voting? I mean, who
Right.
cares? What the hell is the problem?
Anybody. So to me, it seems so obvious. We should have as many reasonable protections as we can to make sure the person casting the vote is the person who's supposed to cast the vote. Right?
Yeah.
Seems easy.
I think
It seems
it's
like a very easy
I think
thing.
maybe the finger in the die thing again, maybe.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of after you've done it. He's like,
Right.
yeah, I vote. Dude, that kind of stops the voting 3 or 4 times,
right.
But afterwards. And
The
stuff,
other
yeah.
the other little
God.
piece of Ohio news because we had him on the show. It's interesting to track this Bernie Moreno versus Sherrod Brown. Basically, I looked. Apparently, there are 26 polls on this, and I'm calling it a dead heat. It looks to me,
We got to reach out to Bernie, see if he wants to join us again.
yeah. It seems
He's not busy, is he?
It's,
No, none of them are. None of them
It
are,
seems to me that like that's a toss up, which is shocking because Sherrod's had that job for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Here's my take on this: is that as I watch various media sources on my phone, not that I scroll a lot, but I do watch. You know, that's where I watch my news now.
Yeah.
There's an ad. It seems like every other thing I watch is an ad either for or against Sherrod Brown and or Bernie Moreno. It's like there's a lot of dollars getting thrown out there. And I
Yes.
think it's more on behalf of Sherrod Brown
Yeah.
and less on behalf. In other words, there's more negative ads I'm seeing about Bernie Moreno,
Yeah.
and they're all abortion related.
They're really trying to scare people, but particularly women, that Bernie is going to sign or introduce or do something with a national abortion ban. And Trump has already said he won't sign it.
Yeah.
And if Kamala gets elected, obviously she won't sign it.
Yeah,
So
so
it's just scare tactics.
It's a nothing
Yes.
burger.
Well, and it's we've talked about this too. Is that you've got to ignore those ads.
You
You have to, because it's all scare tactics. I'll give a percentage. 75% of it's horseshit.
It is.
It just is, and they get away with it because they can get away with
Right.
it.
Yep.
The parties can do that. They if it's a lie, it's a lie. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be put in jail for it and such. But yeah,
I agree.
I've got a little bit of Ohio news too. This flew under the radar, but just caught my eye for some reason. That in October, DeWine and it's Ohio Corporate Welfare basically. The Ohio Department of Development, along with DeWine and Husted, they put this this meat processing industry grant together a couple of years ago. So they've awarded $14 million to meat processing industry to help them put money into their business. I mean, they need upgrades, that sort of thing. Okay, so what caught my eyes? I'm looking at the winners of this per county, mostly in local rural counties. That's where the meat processing
where it's
plants
at.
are.
Yeah.
And a couple of caught my eye going, those are multi-million-dollar companies.
Mm.
Why are they getting $500,000 of grant money?
Yeah.
To the small guys I get. I mean, and a couple of them I looked at is what, and I'll call them out. Ohio Farm Packing out of Creston, Ohio. They have from what I researched, a revenue of $65.5 million, and they got $309,000.
That's a gross revenue.
Yeah. Gerber Poultry out of Kedron, Ohio, from what I saw, reported $180.6 million in revenue. They received a $500,000 grant. Case Farm Processing out of Winesburg, Ohio, they're owned out of North Carolina.
They're not even a local company.
And they have a local company, and they got $500,000, and they've got 3,500 employees. Now, there were some that made sense. There was one out of Bidwell, Ohio, RNC Packing, 4 employees. Again, this is what I saw reported. Revenue of $500,000. They received a $500,000 in grant.
All right, so maybe they could use it.
They could probably use it to upgrade stuff. I can. I don't know where the parameters, but it's like you got to be kidding me.
It's always the same with government handouts like this, and it's like it's never. It's always judged by the purpose, never the outcome.
Right.
So it's like, look, we have this grant because we want to help the meat packers and we want to help people do this, and it's going to drive down prices for you. It's not going to do any of those things. First of all,
no.
What it's going to do is simply put money in the people's pockets who are giving money to the people who are giving out the money.
Right.
And support.
Yeah,
right.
And
I now look, I am surmising this.
You talk about money laundering.
So look, but that's what it is. These are special interests, and they're getting paid out.
Right. And a lot of these small meat packing are great because they're the local guys that are 4 or 5 employees that they're taking the deer that you shot.
Yes.
And they'll
process it. They'll process it for free and hand it out to the homeless guys.
Exactly. Yeah. They will. Or a small farmer that's got 4 or 5 head of cattle, and they need it slaughtered and cut up, and they're not doing it on their own. They're doing it.
This is like COVID.
Perfect.
This is like COVID, right? Well, so they imposed COVID restrictions, and all the big companies just scored big. They benefited big time, and all the little guys went out of business.
Yeah.
And because everybody's getting, like, look at all the PPP fraud that went on with these bigger companies. They didn't need the PPP money. They didn't need it at all.
No.
And Walmart was still open.
Yeah.
But mom and pop wasn't.
McDonald's was open, but your local pizzeria had to shut down.
Yeah. Mitchell shut down. McDonald's open.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Exactly.
I can't.
And when you eat, look, you could take your mask down.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, like, you wouldn't.
Well, the pizza stopped.
It is pizza.
So I have to say, philosophically, because we talked a little bit about FEMA philosophically.
Well, hold on a second. Let me just finish. I had one more thought I wanted to make.
Go, man.
And that is, this doesn't do anything to help the problem. So their goal is to drive prices down, I'm sure, or help or do whatever.
Sure.
It's not going to do a damn thing to do that.
No.
And if whatever the market will bear, these guys will upgrade their equipment as they need to.
Yeah.
And if they can't, they're going to go out of business, and somebody else who can will come in. And I hate to say that. I'm not wishing people out of business.
Right.
But when you start putting your thumb on the scale that helps the big guys, it's going to hurt the little guys more.
Well, yes, Steve.
Well, and I love
let the market fix it.
Yeah, and I love Houston's.
Let the market fix it.
Yeah, and I love Houston's comment to this. He says, quote, "Much of our meat today comes from large industrial farms and processors. And these grants help local farmers in Ohio serve their local customers with locally grown high-quality meats. These grants allow small businesses to create this efficiency and productivity they need to compete and provide locally grown food at an affordable price." Houston, you don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah,
you don't know where the money's going.
Sounds good, though.
Oh, it sounds fantastic in the press release.
So here's my philosophical problem with all of this. I am sure that these Ohio businesses went crabbing to the state government because they have evidence that Indiana and Kentucky and Pennsylvania state governments are somehow subsidizing their competitors. And so, hey, we need help too. And this is how we got to the CHIPS Act with, chip making, and it's $20 billion for Intel. And I say, well, what about the competitors that didn't get the money, number one? And number two, and I know, Steve, you will help me on this, but I always have a problem with this phrase, equal protection, in our Constitution. And to me, this whole idea of giving money to Solyndra and these companies that, even Tesla, that take the money and it goes right to their bottom line, and it makes money for the owners of those companies at the expense of us, the taxpayers.
Well, right.
And I'm like, why doesn't equal protection simply say that if you're going to give $500,000 to this little meat cutting company, right, then you got to give $500,000 to Dan, the producer, for his company, and for Steve's law firm, and for me and my automobile parts business. Yeah. Why do some companies get this federal and state largesse and the rest of us don't? It's not equal protection. And I know I read that as a simple person reading the Constitution, but the Constitution was written for farmers and tradesmen. It wasn't written for Supreme Court justices. And to me, equal protection means, hey, man, you treat us all the same.
Right.
You know, and if I am running Intel into the ground as management and I got to go bankrupt, like Steve says, let the market work. Some other business will pop up.
And look, the discussion on the equal protection clauses probably goes beyond the scope of what we're doing here today.
Yes, it does.
But your point is this, is that when the government starts to try to influence this kind of stuff, like they did when the car industry subsidizing all the electric cars.
Or green energy,
or
like Solyndra.
Yeah. And nobody wants an electric car. And before the government paid for all the electrical cars with our money, nobody wanted electrical cars. After the government paid for electrical cars with our money, nobody wants electrical cars. So now it's just money that's burned. Like you said, it's gone to their bottom line. They don't give a crap because they got the government money to do it. And now we're just, there's a bunch of cars that don't sell. They're going to go into the scrap heap and do some environmental investigation on what happens to those batteries. I mean, it's like this is it is government lunacy, and like I said, this is Thomas Sowell. These programs are always judged by their intent, not their outcome. Yep. And the intent sounds great. We're going to get rid of. We're going to loosen the grip that fossil fuels has on us, and we're going to help the meat packers and get local meats. Where's the money go? To the big guys who now it's in North Carolina, wherever that is, right? So
or it just gets frittered away.
It gets frittered away. What do they care? Like all the COVID money that people didn't need, like the PPP money. It just went right into their bank accounts.
So
and they remodeled their kitchens with it.
And even if they follow the house, so these companies get $500,000, are they going in and inspecting that $500,000 was invested in a better cutting system?
In some sensible way.
And then I get calls later because these people are doing what you said. They're not using it for that. They're using it to buy new stuff. And then they get later prosecuted because the program doesn't work. And then the people who got the money get prosecuted because they used the money for some purpose that they shouldn't have.
Right.
And the government blames them for the failure of the program.
Right.
It's an age-old story.
And the thing is, if the state of Ohio has money to play Santa Claus like this, we're overtaxed. This is evidence that we're overtaxed.
Yeah. But there's no question about that.
That the state of Ohio has money to go around and play Santa Claus to private business and give them checks.
Right.
You know, I would feel less offended, frankly, if they went into the hood and found young teenagers that want to start, I don't know, whatever business. They want to be an Uber driver, but they don't have a car. I would feel better if they went in and found impoverished youth, you know, who show some sense of wanting to work and say, hey, instead of laying on the couch, how about we give you $5,000? You go buy a beat up Honda Accord and start delivering pizzas with it.
And start up some incubators, basically.
Yeah. I mean, instead of this bullshit.
Business incubators in neighborhoods that need that type of development.
So I'm not in favor of that, but I'm saying that would be a better use.
It would be a better, for
in
sure.
my opinion.
Because the investment, you'd see the ROI pretty quickly.
Well, we're helping out college students, right, with this loan program and all that. Why not help out blue-collar kids in the inner city
right back to that
maybe want to buy some tools, be a car mechanic, or whatever the hell?
Yeah, or
at any rate.
Fixing up homes or whatever the case might be. You bet.
Super aggravating.
Yeah.
Now my blood pressure's up. Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
Little international news. I hate to hammer on this because I'm sure I'm some kind of anti-Semite, right, for even broaching this subject. But if it is true, and I've heard the range between 20,000 and 40,000 Gazans have been killed by the IDF in the IDF's war of retribution against Hamas, I'm totally in favor of Israel killing Hamas. Why are you killing 20 to 40,000 Gazan civilians in order to kill the terrorists? Why don't you just drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza and get it over? Why don't you just Hiroshima the thing? If your idea is, well, we can't surgically strike the terrorists, so we got to kill everybody, that is not moral. That is wrong. And Israelis know it's wrong. The Jewish people are a brilliant people, and this number keeps going up. And now I have heard that 1/4 of the Lebanese population are on refugee status, a quarter of the country, right? Because Israel's now invaded Lebanon. They want to create a buffer zone. I get it. You don't like Hezbollah missiles. I get it. I'm with you. Why don't you shoot all the missile sites? Instead, you're hitting the Irish UN peacekeepers, and you're displacing a fourth of the Lebanese population to go after specific Hezbollah people. There's got to be a better way for you to fight this war, because now it's a four-front war. You got Israel fighting in Lebanon. They're fighting in Gaza. They're fighting in the West Bank, and they're going to, because of that 180 missile strike by Iran, they're going to do something to Iran. Yeah. And that's the fourth front.
Sooner or later, that's coming.
And our United States Navy is parked in the Mediterranean acting as air defense for Israel. So we're shooting down, when Iran sent those missiles over, our Navy ships like the USS Cole shot down.
Did you see the video of that?
A bunch of those.
That was
pretty cool stuff.
That was pretty cool. I mean,
but guys,
a weird cool, but you know what I mean?
My problem is there's been no war powers authorization by Congress to allow Biden to do this. There's no declaration of war. And Kamala says we have no personnel in a war zone. Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. But
look, you can't just blame Biden. Like, every president's done this since essentially World War II.
And I disagree with all of them except for the ones that got war powers.
Well, that's what I mean.
So Lyndon Johnson, after the Gulf of Tonkin attack, he went to Congress and got war. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at least do something.
But then crossed into Cambodia anyway.
Right. I mean, they exceeded the brief. Right. What I'm saying is Biden should be coming to the American people and saying, we're slowly getting involved in these wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East, and I need your buy-in. Do you want me to do this as your president? Yes, no.
Well, look, go back. You can turn back the clock even separately or a little bit differently on this, is that we, the United States, under Biden, did not actively keep the peace in that part of the world, right?
Yeah.
And this has resulted. So you can criticize Israel all you want for how they're executing this. Yeah. But had we have kept the peace in the first place, I don't think any of this happens.
Well, we lifted the embargo on oil.
We lifted the embargo. Iran. You basically empower Iran. Iran uses that money to go fund all the terrorism, and all this happens.
And make nukes.
And then when it first happens in October 7, we don't do a damn thing about it. Right? Not a thing. Everybody gets up and complains a little bit that they killed all these civilians, tortured people, raped women to the point where they died.
Put babies in ovens.
So
I'm with you, Israel. I'm with you.
American citizens into, I think, how many Americans now are still captive hostages?
Well, they don't know anymore because of all these.
They might be dead.
They might be dead.
But look, we did nothing. Nothing. So Biden was riding the fence. Our administration was riding the fence on this. Right. It has enabled this to keep going on. So the longer this goes on, the more of what you're talking about will occur, because Israel is fighting this war on their own right now.
Yes.
They're not. I mean, and I get it. We're helping them. We're giving them stuff. But they're on their own, politically speaking. And if we want it done differently, well, then get off the sidelines.
We are in the driver's seat on this, because what ammunition are they using?
Well, they're using ours.
They're using ours. So again, we can put a thumb on this, like you
we
said.
We are playing both sides of this fence.
Right.
If our country would have said no, you got, first of all, no to any of this, and I don't think it happens. By no, I mean
Hamas is an Iranian client, and we should have done something to Iran immediately.
So immediately we put our foot down on this. And after October 7, if we get involved and say, look, you got 10 minutes to bring these hostages back, or we're involved.
Right.
Is there a problem with that other than politically?
That's right.
Yeah. These are Americans.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
I'll tell you what, that's how Putin deals with things.
And look,
you step on Russia, oh man, it's a bad comeback.
And the weakness causes this.
Yeah.
The weakness causes this.
That's right.
Peace through strength. That's the old Reagan term. And that's what JD was talking about in his debate. But that's the old.
That was the motto of the Strategic Air Command. Peace through strength. Was it really?
Yes,
sir. They would show an armored, out there, right, Pat? They would show an armored fist, like a knight would wear, a glove made of mail, and it would have thunderbolts in it, which were meant to represent atomic bombs, right?
Yeah.
And it would gripped it like that, and it said peace through strength.
And these SAC guys, we should talk about that real quick. It's really cool stuff. Like these guys would like 24/7. We had bombers in the air,
Ready to go, man.
ready to go.
Like
I mean, 24/7.
Dr. Strangelove shit is real.
Right. There's a great. I think there's a great movie, a Jimmy Stewart movie, where he was a SAC
Yeah.
pilot.
Called Strategic Air Command.
Is it called
Yeah,
Strategic?
right.
It's a
Yeah.
great movie.
It is a good movie.
Great stuff.
Where he's a baseball player and
he
then
takes his whole life through this
Yeah.
hero of the. Yeah, it's good.
and becomes a SAC
A
pilot.
bygone era, we shall say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, let's shift over. We got some news and justice. You got anything you want me to talk about?
Yeah, the news injustice.
Or
So
justice for all, we'll call it, whatever we call
I
it.
really need Steve's expertise on this. So I heard on the radio the head of the FOP discussing this raid that went on Saturday night here in Columbus. And apparently it was triggered. Get this. A bunch of hoodlums from Cincinnati and Columbus decided to go to Cleveland and do a street takeover in Cleveland, in downtown Cleveland. So they're doing stunts, reckless operations, speeding, drag racing, doing wheelies, all this stuff. And I guess that was like some kind of like, hey, yo, Cleveland, we're going to invade your space. And so then the racers in Cleveland apparently gave the Columbus police a tip that a similar event was going to happen on Alum Creek Drive here in Columbus at the DSW warehouse in their parking lot. So the Columbus police, Franklin County, and the Ohio State Highway Patrol raided this meet late Saturday night. They arrested 186 people, impounded 69 cars, found 16 firearms. Whether they were legal or not, I don't know. But they confiscated 16 guns. And nobody has really said what these people are being charged with. I've read every news story that I can find, and the only thing I heard on the radio was our friend Brian Steele of the FOP said many of these people will get reckless ops. But when the media interviewed the people arrested, most of them said we were spectators. The guys actually doing the racing left before the cops got them. So, Steve, I don't know what the hell.
I don't know. I mean,
What are you
look,
going to charge them with? Loitering? Or like
there
what's
may be-
Trespassing, maybe, huh?
trespassing?
trespassing,
DSW, maybe?
you know, there's like drag racing is against the law.
But they're on private property?
It's still against the law.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's still against the
But
law.
those that were
Well, maybe
drag
not.
racing were gone.
That's what the spectators claim.
So maybe street race, maybe it's not. Maybe on private property you can do it. There are probably some permit things that you need to get if you're going to host
So that
something
goes
like
back
that.
to trespassing then.
So maybe
if it's at DSW,
who knows?
parking lot, yeah.
But look, they made a much ado about nothing. It sounds like, and
Yeah.
and I love how they say we found 16 firearms. Like ooh,
yeah.
Right.
like
Were they in
there's
the
no
trunk?
crime against owning a firearm.
No.
Legitimizing it, the
So,
raid. Yeah, we
you
took
hear that.
16 off the
16
street.
firearms,
Yeah,
and
right.
usually they talk about the cash too. 16 firearms, and we seized $10,000 worth of cash. It was
So
like,
I'm going to confess something. So I'll confess something. I went to one of these. Okay, I took my Mustang there, and my intent was to show the kids you can do this shit on a racetrack. So I took my Mustang there. It had all the SCCA, big numbers, all the sponsors, and it was like I was honey and they were honeybees. There were all of these teenage kids and young 20s kids all over my car asking me, like, what do you? And I'm like, guys, for $30, you can go to Fortress Obets. They have these autocrosses for $30.
right.
Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And so I was just basically there as a goodwill thing. And I'm thinking to myself,
You could have
well,
been
hell,
arrested.
if Brian Steele would have caught me there. Now, I love Brian, but like, Brian, are you just impounding cars because they were there? Like, I don't understand what they would charge them.
I
with.
ran across one of those. It was like 10 o'clock at night at a Walmart parking lot there in Tuttle Mall area, that sort of thing. And it was just lined with cars, but it was like kind of a quasi car show, kind of that feel to
Probably
it.
food trucks.
And probably
Yeah.
something. But it's like
So
I thought that was a really
it's
cool
gotta be
idea.
against
Well,
the
that
law.
takes kids off the street.
I know
just looking at cars and stuff.
Drag
But, yeah.
racing on public streets is against the law.
That's crazy.
It's-
It's crazy to do that. That's
People do
insane.
it. People do it all the time.
And it's
against
so
the law.
dangerous.
Or they'll go like I've heard tell of people like going down to some street on the south side of Columbus where it's not real busy at night and everybody sort of comes around, blocks off the street, and they drag race. Police
Yeah.
come, they all run away. But this sounds like it was on private property. I don't know the law.
Yeah.
I don't know. My guess is it requires some sort of permitting, and certainly it's dangerous anyway because it's dangerous.
Apparently, I won't say who, but let's just put it this way. Columbus's most famous race car driver, and he won the Indy 500. I'll just let it go at that, holds the record for a lap of I-270. And apparently there are people. It's not too big of a leap to figure out who that was.
Yeah, really.
But I don't want to say his name because I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah. But there are people doing that today. They say that they're late at night, 3, 4 in the morning. Cops really aren't radaring, and there's guys out there with their Suzukis or
they're doing it at 9 o'clock at night. Because we live in
You've
Hilliard.
seen it? You've seen it?
You hear it.
You hear it.
Oh, you hear those crock rockets. And it's all along the west side on 270.
There's nothing.
Oh yeah, it's nasty.
That's crazy.
My son doesn't understand why I get so upset at this because he's at that age where he thinks motorcycles are cool and everything, and you see these jackasses on their bikes, in traffic doing their wheelies and taking their videos and doing all this stuff.
They are
and
dead meat.
I get so pissed off, and Matt's like, "Why are you so upset?" They're just going. I was like, "Because he's going to make me kill him.
That's right.
He's going to crash, and I've got to feel what it feels like and live with what it feels like
to run over him." That's right.
And see the hamburger behind me.
Yep.
Oh, God.
And it's like, damn it.
Yeah, what's wrong with you people?
It's like, go do that on a track somewhere.
Go down to National Trail Drag Race or go to Mid-Ohio or go to Fortress O. That's an autocross. So apparently there is some kind of minister, and this goes back to the beginnings of the NHRA back in Southern California. There's some minister who just announced, I think in yesterday's dispatch, that he is going to try to create a motorsports alternative for local youth. Well, that's how the NHRA got founded.
Yeah, well, that's NASCAR.
It was to take racing off the street and onto a track where there's a medic and a helicopter and a doctor and
it's like
fire
make it
extinguishers.
Safe. Make a club, make it safe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, let's get to our last segment. Wonderfully outrageous or outrageously wonderful, whatever your take. Norm, you go first.
So since I picked on Melania last week, I'm going to be on her side with this outrage. Melania's new book discusses that she and President Trump were debanked. And apparently this is something I just heard about from a friend of mine a couple of years ago who got out of prison and could not get a bank account, which is wrong. If we're going to rehabilitate people, we got to let them be in the legitimate system. How can you run a business if you can't get a bank account? At any rate, now they are debanking people for political beliefs. And Melania said, you can imagine, the guy's a billionaire, right? The bank sent them like an email and said, having you as a client at our bank is not a good look.
It's so painful.
She did not name the bank, but I wish she would have. And I bet it comes out eventually. But I am told this is getting to be a thing. So if you own a gun shop or if you own a tobacco shop or something that's considered, not PC, it's hard to get a bank account. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, they're going to force us to go crypto. That's what they're going to force,
it's
which is not good either.
So look, this is happening with the marijuana shops. This is what's going on.
I bet you hear
vape
this.
shops. So they can't bank. And I've had guys who have been in different legitimate businesses and they can't get a bank account.
Yeah.
They can't get a bank account. So it gets driven to cash. And look, that has its, I don't have any problem operating in cash. In fact, I think on some levels it's good.
Yeah.
But on a lot of levels it's bad. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Right.
Who do you think the crooks are looking for? The guy with a credit card or the guy with $100,000 in his trunk?
Yeah. Yeah. Walks out of the gun shop at night with today's receipts.
Because
and
they
it's
won't
all
bank
cash.
with him. Yeah. Because the big banks won't bank with them.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's outrageous. I get you.
Yeah. There was, I saw this piece. We are now 1.8 trillion in debt.
That
this
is
last
outrageous.
fiscal year, and that was never brought up. Was that debated at all? Debated? I don't remember that being a topic at all.
And they're adding $1 trillion every 100 days.
Yeah, nearly $2 trillion annual deficit was fueled by greater spending on programs for older Americans and higher interest payments. The U.S. spent $950 billion with a B on IOUs last fiscal year. That's a 34% spike. We're paying more on the interest. We're not even touching what we owe.
The principal.
And this is a can that I think our next generation is going to feel.
Yeah. No, look, we can fix this. The bad news is it's horrible. The good news is it's very fixable. We're talking about I get it. We're talking about Ohio money, but think how much money is blown. Blown. And anybody who comes in. So look, if it's true that Trump's bringing Elon Musk in to say, I'm going to be your I'm going to handle this. I'm going to get this stuff organized. Like you could easily skim the budget here and pay that down in a matter of years.
Yeah.
Easily.
I heard Clay Travis say you could fire every other federal employee, like 50% personnel cut. And he said, I bet
Nobody would know.
Nobody would even know the difference.
You would never know.
Yeah.
I look, even the number of lawyers employed by the government, it's insane.
It's insane.
It's
Yes.
utter insanity.
Yeah.
Utter insanity.
When my brother was in combat in Kuwait, there were lawyers right behind his tanks telling him if it's a legit thing.
Right.
Can you imagine Battle of the Bulge? And you got
Right.
lawyers. I mean, really?
Right. I've got some legal advice for you, sir.
Wow.
Right. It's unbelievable.
Jeez, but
unbelievable.
anyway.
All right. Well, look, I did not watch the entire thing of Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes, but I did read the stories, and here's what's outrageous to me, and this is my outrage at the media, that what Kamala said to 60 Minutes is not what aired on 60 Minutes. Yet it did. So 60 Minutes drops her answer, her word salad answer to a question.
That's right.
And you can look it up. We don't have time to go into
That's
it. But
insane.
drops a word salad answer to a question. And 60 Minutes, I think, played a teaser of that. So it's out there in the ether.
Yeah.
But when they aired the actual interview, they had cut it. And it still sounded stupid, it still sounded
They put in a different answer.
a different answer.
Oh, totally different.
An edited answer.
It was completely edited.
Oh, it's not, but
Wow.
it's not the edited version of the first answer.
It's like,
It's a
is that right?
completely
It was
different-
something completely
It's a
different. I didn't realize
completely
that.
different
Yeah.
answer.
I find that outrageous. I find it completely outrageous.
It's scandalous.
It tells you that our media is a captured empire. I mean, it's like they did not do it to make her look bad. They did it to make her look good or
Right.
better.
And CBS has a track record of this.
If anybody thinks that they're not doing the same and opposite to the candidate they don't like, Trump,
Yeah.
then you're nuts.
Well, you
So-
because you have the ability to do it.
They
You
have the
can make
ability
it
to
look
do it.
good or
Well,
bad.
you remember why Dan Rather got fired at CBS, right? Because CBS has a history of this. They came out with that apparently dossier that George Bush II was being treated special in the Air National Guard, right?
Yeah.
And then it turned out that was completely fabricated. Like the guy who did it was a political operative, and he just made up the
Yeah,
paperwork.
and Rather with all his like high horse BS,
He
now,
went
it's
with
like,
it.
well, he's like
went with
Mr. like I'm the authority on all the news, and I see what I see.
I'm like Walter Cronkite. No, you're not.
no, you're not.
actually.
You're a partisan hack.
No,
That's
no,
right.
No, Kenneth, you're not.
No, you're not.
And then David
So-
Muir in that debate, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, it just and most recently, well, at least JD was ready for it. So most recently, but it just shows you how they're trying
Yeah.
to hide the truth. The media is no longer supplying the truth; they're hiding the truth.
Right.
That you can't call that in. Like if I had that person on a witness stand, if I had whoever made those cuts on a witness stand,
right.
I would shred them.
Yeah.
Because I would make you're trying to conceal the real answer, and concealment of the real answer. What you're really talking about is something a little dishonest, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when something's dishonest, it's akin to a lie. So basically, what you do is you published a lie, and I would
Absolutely.
a lot more artfully and with a lot more theater, I would walk that person down the garden path to make them an utter, complete conspirator to commit lies, and it's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
Well, yeah.
It's true.
So look,
They are busted.
what I find wonderful, or what I find very a couple things I'm going to talk about, but we already talked about the linemen, and I think the response of the normal average Joe to go down and help out is what I'm not wearing a hat, but if I did, I would tip it to you, because that is what makes our country great. You can talk about and make our country great again. Our country's always been great, and it's great because of people like that.
Yeah.
It's great because, and it's not just the linemen who are doing it for money. I'm watching on YouTube different guys saying, well, I'm heading down. And, they might be doing it for a little bit of likes and votes and whatever on YouTube. But I know of people going down just to go down and offer what they can. And there's more of people out there doing that than I think Americans truly know. And we can only imagine what it would be if we didn't have this culture where we think the federal government fixes everything.
Yeah.
It's like then what could we do then?
Right.
When we're really incentivized or not disincentivized.
A lot
rather,
more of us
to go
would
do it.
die.
Yeah.
That's what would happen.
Yeah.
I saw good old boys. They weren't waiting for the county to rebuild a bridge or whatever. And they had taken a grocery cart, put it on cables, and they were doing this across the river to the other side to get food. And they just rigged it up themselves.
They rigged it up and did it.
And they just
This
did
is
it.
how go read Ambrose.
That's right.
Go read Ambrose on World War II, and this is how we won World War II. The good old fashioned American ingenuity and ambition.
That's right.
Ambition.
That's right.
And you know what? That's our greatest asset of a country. Do not disincentivize it.
Right. Right.
I agree.
Yeah, that we don't always have to ask permission, or am I allowed to do this? Why can't I be here? You just go do it.
And I will say it's also wonderful that Circleville, Ohio has the greatest show, or the biggest show on the planet, the Pumpkin Show, next weekend, or next week, all next week. Starts like Tuesday or Wednesday for locals, and it goes all through Saturday. So I'm not going to, it's too late to talk about it next Friday because it's already happening. So go to the biggest show on the planet, and I dare you to go down to Circleville, Ohio, and call it a festival.
I was going to say, you brought up about the terminology. It's a show.
Do not call it a festival. It's a show.
Okay.
And I think our veterans
celebrate the Orange Gourd.
And I think our veterans organization, Lima Company, the display will be at that festival.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, there you go.
Usually is every year.
You just called it a festival, Norm. It's a show.
It's a show. They call it a show.
What's wonderful to you?
Cool.
Do you have a wonderful thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go with mine. So I was talking about racing. I'm racing tomorrow and Sunday at Mid-Ohio. And man, this is what people should be doing with those cars. Don't go to some parking lot. It's costing me $500 to do this. Okay, I know that's a lot of money, but guess what? Now you don't have your Honda Accord or your Civic or whatever. It's been impounded. You're going to have to go pay a lawyer to get out of your reckless op, and your insurance is going to jack because reckless op is way worse than speeding. So have fun in jail. Or come up to Mid-Ohio, and I'll teach you a couple things about going around corners. So all you young guys out there, channel your energy to positive things with your cars.
No more early apexers.
That's the worst sin of all. Don't early apex.
All right. Well, that is, we're going to wrap it up. That's Common Sense Ohio. You can check us all out at commonsenseohioshow.com. I think we might have even had a comments on the live stream here too. But if you've got your own questions, you want us to talk about something, or you think you can hang with Norm here at the table, give us a shout. Right there at commonsenseohioshow.com. We are on all the socials. I get criticized by the youngins by calling in my other show for calling them socials. But we're everywhere. You can find us whatever works for you. Common Sense Ohio coming at you right from the middle each and every week until now.